Men who support women empowerment, gender equality, and inclusivity must be recognized and appreciated. One such tech sector company which supports women inclusivity is Daraz, Pakistan. I will now invite the CEO of Daraz, Pakistan, Mr. Ehsan Saya, to talk about the male champions who advocate women inclusivity in tech sector. Mr. Ehsan Saya, please join us on stage.
That way I can walk around and have my coffee too. First of all, assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much for having me, and happy International Women's Day. And specifically, thank you for those of you that stuck around. I saw people sneakily leaving, so I appreciate that. Yes, I hope so too. Don't get your expectations high though. I think to start, my plan today is I think we want to show a video that I think will speak a lot of things that I want to talk about. And really represents what we stand for as a company. So perhaps we can start with that, and then I can carry on after that. If there's volume, that would be really nice.
तो स्टडी के साथ साथ मैंने अपने अंकल के ट्रेडिंग का ऑफिस भी ज्वाइन किया, तो उनके साथ ट्रेडिंग का भी काम सीखा। और उसके साथ साथ मैंने ये चीज़ सीखी कि किसी मुल्क की तरक्की के लिए औरत का शाना बशाना खड़ा होना ज़रूरी है। वहाँ पे मर्द और औरत मतलब ये नहीं होता कि कोई मतलब कि ज्वेलरीज का या कोई अदरवाइज कोई लेडीज काम हो तो वो औरत करेगी। वहाँ पे जो मर्द कर रहा है वो औरत कर रही है, और शाना बशाना दोनों साथ खड़े। कुछ सालों पहले कोविड का सिलसिला शुरू हुआ तो उससे सब ऑफलाइन हो गया, तो मैंने वाइफ से अपने डिस्कस किया, तो माशाल्लाह वो पढ़ी लिखी थी, तो उन्होंने बोला क्यों ना हम ऑनलाइन पे जाए।
ऑनलाइन बिजनेस स्टार्ट करने के बाद मुझे 2 चैलेंजेस का सामना करना पड़ा। एक ये कि दराज में प्रोडक्ट सेल किस तरह करते हैं, और दूसरा ये कि हार्डवेयर टूल्स जो मेरे हस्बैंड का बिज़नेस था वो के बारे में मुझे एज अ वुमेन मुझे बिल्कुल भी नॉलेज नहीं थी। तो दराज में बिज़नेस किस तरह चलाते हैं वो मैंने दराज यूनिवर्सिटी से सीखा, और पावर टूल्स के बारे में मैंने अपने हस्बैंड से सीखा। स्टार्टिंग में हमें चंद ऑर्डर्स रिसीव होना शुरू हुए थे, लेकिन ग्रेजुअली वो इंक्रीज़ होने लग गए, और माशाल्लाह से पंजाब के या पूरे पाकिस्तान भर के छोटे छोटे इलाकों से हमें ऑर्डर रिसीव होना शुरू हो गए। आज माशाल्लाह से हम उस जगह खड़े हैं कि हम 700 प्लस इन अ मंथ ऑर्डर रिसीव कर रहे हैं। बीइंग अ मदर ऑफ 3 किड्स, इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू रन अ बिजनेस, बट अगर आपको कुछ करने की चाहत हो तो यू कैन डू एवरीथिंग। मैं समझती हूँ कि ख़वातीन को बिजनेस करने के लिए ज्वेलरी फैशन का सहारा लेने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। आप हर चीज़ पे एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हो, और मर्दों के शाना बशाना आप चल सकते हैं।
So I think when we talk about male champions, I think truly it's actually depicted in this video. What I'm going to talk about today is what are some of the policies we put in place, how they've helped for our employees, how that's translated for our sellers, and then what are some of the I think challenges that we have that we want to address in the future, and what are the areas that I think really males, and so all the gentlemen in the back who are eating, what are the things that as men we need to do to ensure that we can really fight for the cause. So I think first and foremost, if you look at our mission as a business, is to uplift communities through the power of commerce. And you really cannot uplift communities unless you uplift its women. And so when we look at ourselves as a business and where we want to be, where we are today, I have 100% confidence that if we do not include more women in our workforce, if we do not solve the challenges that women have from a business standpoint, that we will not be able to grow as a business. In fact, we talked a little bit about how it's good for business. I can also confidently say, based on data, that women definitely make better shoppers than men, right? So from a business standpoint as well, it makes a lot of sense for me to make sure that I'm able to attract more women. Whether it's the categories I'm choosing to highlight, whether it's from my acquisition side, or whether it's actually at the starting point of all of this to make sure I have employees that can cater to actually my end consumer. So we really started on this journey, I would say, a few years ago, and I think we just started marching before we knew which direction was the right direction, and just started putting in place policies and pushing in the directions that, to be honest, just felt right, that it was the right thing to do. Today, we have about 33% of the leadership team consists of women. It's not what it should be. We have across the organization, it's still only 20% of our entire workforce is female, which, to be honest, is, yes, it's increased by almost 5% in the last year, but it's not nearly where it should be. So what we tried to do is put in place policies that would encourage women. We started with really figuring out that when we look at the age bracket that we're attracting, which the average age that Daraz has is 26. So it's really a lot of women at that age are perhaps becoming new mothers, perhaps getting married. So we really had to figure out what is it that's hurting our retention and what is it that's preventing us from attracting more females in the workforce. We started this by first having the discussions, which I think is actually something that we sometimes don't appreciate, but it's really having the discussion as to what it is that you need to do and really asking females what are the pain points that they have with your work. We then introduced a daycare to make sure that women had the facility at our workplace. We increased our maternity leave to 4 months. We did a lot of these things like providing transportation so that women felt safe. Often, a lot of people know that we're sometimes infamous for working long hours. So we really had to make sure that at least the females felt very safe when they were coming into the office and when they were leaving the office. And finally, really providing a lot of flexibility. And flexibility is something that, your male counterparts, we don't appreciate nearly as much. Females need a lot more flexibility, whether it's sometimes dropping off kids to school, whether it's being able to work from home when they need to. And I think a lot of those things we really started talking about it. And I'll give you an anecdotal evidence which came yesterday. We did a session called Listen and Learn, in which we invited all the female managers as well as a lot of the male managers, and really asked them thought-provoking questions as to what are we doing well, what are we not doing well. And it was very interesting that despite of us starting a daycare, despite of us providing maternity leave, one of the females left one of the departments because she said, I don't know how this place will be after I have a mother, which was actually shocking because if I look from a policy perspective, it doesn't make sense. But when we really started digging into it, what we realized was that we need to still have that conversation a lot more. So even if you provide these policies, it's that someone should feel safe, that when I go on mat leave, that when I come back, I'm secure. And there's no taboo to taking time off, or there's no taboo to working from home. There's no taboo to coming in a little bit later and leaving a little bit earlier. And those only happen once we make the conversation constant and fluid. And so that for learning for us was that we had this discussion yesterday, and the takeaway for the entire management team was that we really need to make sure that we do this more constantly, and to really make sure that the women do feel that the policies we have in place and the facilities we have in place are ones that we are encouraging them to take advantage of. And then when I look at really us as a business, and it would be naive to say, and to be honest, I think quite unfortunate, if all we did was put in place policies that attracted more women. Because I don't think that's really the true power of Daraz. The true power of Daraz is that we can empower millions of people in the country. We can empower millions of women in the country. And so if we stop at just having the policies in place, then we're really not achieving what our true potential is. And it gives me a lot of pride that today, about 20% of all of our sales come from women. And when you compare this, if you go to Sadr and you go to the market, you're not going to see 20% of the stores being run by women. So it's really being able to uplift women at the core and giving them the ability to have access to commerce. When we look at that number, what's even more amazing is about 1/5 of that population is outside of Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. So it's not just the women in the core cities, in the 3 major cities that are being empowered, but it's ones that perhaps don't have the ability to leave home easily that we're really able to reach. And I think when I look at what is it that we need to do next, it's very evident to me that we have not done nearly enough. 20% is not the number it should be, whether it's on our workforce, whether it's on the seller base, and even those that are outside of Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. So the next step that we are taking is really making sure we put very defined KPIs on that part of our business, which is the sellers. On how many female sellers do you need to attract? What is the quality of a female seller? And it's very interesting, actually. If you look at a female seller and the NPS they have and the quality return rate and the frauds that happen from female sellers is close to zero compared to their, I guess, cunning male counterparts. So they make better businesswomen, right? So it makes a lot of sense for us from a consumer perspective, from a business perspective, to be able to attract more and more female sellers and to really be able to achieve our purpose as a business. And in this, what we have done is we've also partnered up with an organization called Male Champions of Change, which is an Australian organization. In Pakistan, they have about 26 CEOs, and we have a meeting every quarter in which we're held accountable for the commitments we make, whether it's on the gender equality, whether it's on the pay gap. You know, we actually, a lot of things, to be honest, and I think one of the advantages of having governance structures that you should abide by is it actually makes you think, because there's so many things that you may not know are the areas you can focus on. But if someone tells you, hey, why don't you look at these 5 things, it really allows you to poke in that area and discover and actually make improvements there. So one area we never looked at, for example, was pay gender equity, that where males and their female counterparts paid equal amounts. And it actually gave me quite a bit of happiness that women in Daraz are paid 9% more than their male counterparts. So, but there's still, again, when you dig deeper into that, there's still work that needs to be done there. How much are managers paid versus male managers versus female managers, etc. So what it has allowed us to do is to really hold ourselves accountable, make sure that we are putting in place the right policies, but also creating this conversation and sometimes uncomfortable conversations around the office. And that has been super enlightening. And I think that's something that should not be underrated, is the amount of effort that we need to put to have these conversations as males. And that brings me to my third point. As a male champion, I think first and foremost, as a male champion, it's really making sure that you are the one leading the conversations, that you are the ones that are bringing up these conversations across the organization, especially if you're in a leadership position. But even if you're not in a leadership position, it's super important for you to go poke the leadership in your organization to figure out and find out what's happening. It will, without a shadow of doubt, be good for your business, but it's also honestly just the right thing to do. Secondly, for us, it's really putting in place proper targets, that we want to have an X% of women across the organization in leadership, that we want to have X% for gender pay equity, doing audits towards them, reporting them, putting targets in terms of how many training sessions we're going to have for sexual harassment, and really holding ourselves accountable that it's not just something that we're going to say, but we're going to put it into KPIs and deliver on it. And the next phase of that KPIs, like I said, is right now I think we're doing a good, moderately decent job of within the organization, where we have KPIs that we hold ourselves accountable for within the organization. The next challenge for us is to take the KPIs when we talk about business growth and really translating that for women empowerment. And I think that really is something that excites us, because like I said, it's, super good for the business, but it's also just the right thing to do. And I think as a male champion, it's those two elements have been very crucial. And in this, what I've noticed, the one single thing that has worked super well for us is having women in leadership positions. In fact, in perhaps what would be non-traditional roles. Our chief commercial officer, which is primarily a sales role, which is predominantly male-dominated, is a female. She's in fact a female that did not have sales-related experience. She was just a super smart engineer and a good human being. And what it has allowed us to do is actually create the ripples that across the sales department now, the number of females has gone up, I think, by about 10% just in the last years. And it's really become evident that it's not, you don't have to be a male to be able to go to the market. You don't have to be a male to be able to tackle a lot of the issues, especially as a tech company. You know, there's a lot of things that women, if not equal, are, to be honest, better equipped to be able to do. And I think for us, what that has done is it's created an environment where if you have women leaders, a lot of other women look up to them. And when they look up to them, they get mentorship from them. And it creates this downstream impact where more and more and more women are able to come to the organization. They feel safe. And when you have women leaders, they honestly push you. They should. they really ask tough questions, as they should. And they really make you change your way of thinking, as they should. And I think for us, the reason I wanted to talk about this is that to me has been one super important ingredient that has really been a domino. And if sometimes it seems like, oh, I need to do these 30 things, just start with this one thing. Really push for it and really find a way to get more women in the leadership positions. And those 30 things will actually happen so quickly that sometimes when you look back at it, you won't even realize that, what are all the great things you've done. Sometimes when I sit back and I look at it, I'm not sure how we did a lot of the things, but I do know that by having so many amazing women in the organization, that our future is secure, whether it comes from an organization perspective internally, or whether it's actually being able to fulfill our mission of uplifting communities through the power of commerce. Thank you very much.